in the offer and compromise, less than 0.2%. 0.2% of all cases are solved with an offer and compromise. And so people say, well, I had 2 clients in here yesterday and both, we went through the list, right? There's 6 things you can do if you owe the IRS money. I talk about this all the time. There's 6 things you can do if you owe the IRS money, right? The first thing you can do is you can pay them, right? Most people aren't going to come to see me if they could pay them. The 6th thing you can do is nothing. Well, they're in my office. They want to do something. So now we're down to 4 things, right? One of the things that you can do is is file for protection under the bankruptcy laws. Well, if you haven't filed your taxes, and sometimes those taxes aren't going to be dischargeable, so bankruptcy is probably not the option for you. So now we're down to 3 things. We just talked about the offer and compromise being 0.2% of all of those cases settles. So that's really not going to happen for most people. So now we're down to 2 things, right? And what are those 2 things? The installment agreement and the currently not collectible status. Both are very powerful. And I think most people don't understand what an installment agreement is. And maybe we can have a little bit of time to talk about it. But before we do that, I want to talk about the numbers, right? If you owe the IRS money, what's the likely scenario of what you're going to pay? How are you going to solve it? Well, we're pretty convinced you're not going to solve it with an offer and compromise. Okay, so let's just take a look at the numbers. Here they are. And I'll review a little bit about the offer and compromise. So here we have the number of accounts. Let me highlight this so you can see it, right? The number of accounts, get it off my head. Okay, so I have to go up and get it off my head here. But the number of new accounts, or the number of accounts closed. Let's start there. So here's the number of accounts closed. And here it's the number there, 7,401,452. That's the number of collection cases that were closed last year. And collections are when you owe the IRS money. And how do they settle that account? Okay, so here, 7.4 million. And then let's go back down, and I showed you this number earlier, and this is the shocking number about offers and compromise. That should shock anybody that's thinking about having to solve their IRS problem. So here's the number. Numbers of offers accepted. Let's start there. The number of offers accepted, 14,288. Remember now, 7.4 million cases were settled. Of those 7.4 million cases settled, 14,288 were offers and compromise. Okay, so these are the IRS numbers. That doesn't lie. Okay, so when people tell you, "Hey, I went out and got an offer and compromise," it doesn't happen that often. And so they should be happy, and they should be, but don't try to convince you that this is the way you should go, because generally it isn't. And again, the numbers speak for themselves. So here, how else can you settle? We said 2 things: currently not collectible status. There are no numbers here for currently not collectible status. The currently not collectible status is when I can prove to the IRS that I can't pay them. After I pay all my bills, I don't have any money left. I can't pay you. If I can convince them of that, they'll put me in this currently not collectible status. And that means they won't collect any money from me. And they take me out of collections. That means they won't freeze my bank account. That means they won't come after my wages. They'll still send me a bunch of letters and tell me I owe money. And interest is still accumulating. So I still owe them money. It's still accumulating. And if I ever come into some money, I might have to pay it all back, and it might cost me more in the long run to get into a currently not collectible status. But if you're in a currently not collectible status, the alternative is start paying them. Now, even if I'm in a currently not collectible status, I could still pay the IRS. Now, maybe I don't want to do that because I'm telling the IRS that really I'm not in a currently not collectible status. I can pay you. And so then they might make me go through this whole process again. And this is what they call the 433. We call it the 433 investigation. And it's called the 433 investigation because of the form that the IRS uses, the financial form that the IRS uses to gather information about you. But this is also the form that they use to determine an installment agreement, right? So let's look at the installment agreement numbers. Number of agreements established, 1,825,000. So again, compared to offers, 14,000. So 10 times that, 100 times that are these installment agreements. Now the numbers don't add up. There's 7.4 that were settled, right? Of those 7.4, 14,000 were offers, and now 1.8 are installment agreements. Well, what's left? Well, here's something that's left. They settled number of taxpayers who full paid. So 1.6 million. Okay, so now you're getting 2 million, 3.5 million. So it's still about half of all the people. Now, if you have to look into the numbers here about why that is, why are these numbers so far off? So if we look to footnote 11, let's go to footnote 11, the number of new agreements. Footnote 11 says the number of agreements represents the number of. Let's pull it up all the way to the top here. See if I can, so you can see it. The number of agreements represents the number of taxpayers with installment agreements, not the number of tax modules in an installment agreement status. This does not include agreements of 120 days or less. So maybe there's a lot of that are in the installment agreements that are less than 120 days. That's 6 months, right? Or 4 months. So it's 4 months. So I have to be in 4 months before they even count it. Okay, so maybe a lot of these are in installment agreements, and that's where these numbers come from. From my own experience, I can tell you, the vast majority of cases are settled with an offer in compromise. A vast majority of cases, and